It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show.
What's up, everybody? It's your favorite boys, Reedie Zee. We are back for Monday Command. We're here to talk about Mr. Terry McLaurin signing his 3-year extension, $96 million, big ones. He got the bag, he got paid. We're all excited. And of course, we are here today with Mr. JP Flaim from the Sports Junkies. It's an honor, sir. Salute to you. And we're going to talk about the new book he just released and a lot of other things about the team. So make sure y'all tune in and stay tuned. We're coming at right now.
It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show.
What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
What's up, fellas? Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. It's an honor. We appreciate you. Of course, you know, one of the originals in this lane. We salute your work. We listen to you guys every day. And it's an honor. So, you know, thank you for coming on the show. And Reedie, you want to add anything?
No, I think you touched on everything. I think it's exciting today. We got the breaking news about Terry McLaurin signing not signing yet, but agreeing to the 3-year extension for $96 million.
Finally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, finally. So, you know what I mean? This morning we kind of rolled in. We knew we was going to have the episode with you and whatnot. And, you know, we kind of went in with the topic. You know, we're going to talk about the book, and we're going to talk about the 53-man cut. And then we get the breaking news and we flip the script. So
you have to. You know what? It's exciting because I think the preseason was so bad. And we all know it doesn't matter. We know it. But emotionally, it still kind of plays with you a little bit, right?
Yes.
You can say, well, we won a Super Bowl when we didn't win any preseason games. And you look around the league, Lamar didn't play in the preseason. Josh Allen didn't play in preseason. I mean, the Bills got blasted by the Bears 38-0 last week. Do you think that's going to happen in the regular season? No chance, right?
Yeah.
But it still kind of messes with you. It still gives you doubt. And so the Terry McLaurin signing kind of reminds you that under Josh Harris, they've been pretty much doing everything right. Off the field, they've been doing it, and on the field. And this offense, heading into this preseason, all expectations were the offense, which was great last year, should be better because you add Tunsil, you add Debo, you draft Connerly. And now with Terry back, all is right in the world.
Yeah. Facts. Yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty much like, you know, some of the things we've been saying on our show as well, like going through camp and being out there. We were out there, I think, probably like 3 or 4 days straight. And kind of like just from the wide receiver room and the offense perspective, I even called in on the show and talked about it. It's, you know, we needed more in that room. We were definitely missing Terry's presence, you know, of course, him being the number one guy. But, you know, it was a point where I was calling it pretty much Debo and the guys, because Noah Brown was out. Dealing with his injury thing. So then you had a lot of guys that's on the back end of the roster trying to, you know, figure out this wide receiver room. And then, it was just, like you said, it was looking worried. And you didn't know how far it would go. Now, we never doubted that Terry wouldn't be here. It just was a matter of when. And then, you know, last week when he came out for the preseason game, of course, you know, there's the video of him walking in the locker room. And then later there's a video of him on the sideline. Everybody trying to say he's sitting to the side. He's not mingling with the guys. He kind of looking like he's pouting. And they try to make a thing of this hoodie Terry this, standoff is Terry. So to see this come today, this morning, it just wipes all that away and just adds that excitement. And I'm sure the fan, we've seen it from the reaction of the fan base. Everybody's super excited. So like in the moment when you got that alert or when you got the news, like what was your reaction? Was it like a sigh of relief, an excitement? What was it?
All right, my book is called Faith Restored. It was like Faith Restored. They took care of Terry McLaurin. Perfect timing. You can get the book at faithrestoredbook.com. But it's funny. I had a buddy of mine design the cover for the book. And he didn't know anything about what I was working on. So I gave him a couple of like background information about what the book was about. And he sent me a couple of potential covers. And one of them actually was JD5 with Terry celebrating. It was with the black jerseys, and I didn't really want that as the cover. It looked kind of sharp, but and then as this went on and I had to kind of come to an ultimate decision, I was like, man, can I have Terry on the cover with Jayden? I was like, I got to have Jayden on the cover, but Terry, so it fell by the wayside. But honestly, we expected it, but I started to have a little doubts if he was going to be ready for week 1. We kicked it around on the Junkies today towards the end of the show. The stuff you were talking about, the body language and the sulking. And I started to think, well, maybe this is going to resolve itself next week. Maybe it's going to play out a little bit longer. So it's a relief that it happens now because now he has 2 weeks to ramp up for the Giants. And we were talking about on our show, like, when do you think would have been the last day that it would have been cool for him to sign and then get back on the field for week 1? Like, would it have been, I think Jason on the show, Bishbucks was like, it's got to happen by Friday. Cakes was like, it's got to happen by Thursday. Well, it's happened on Monday, which is huge.
Huge. Yeah. Huge. Yeah. How you feel about that, Reedie? Anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's perfect timing, and that's the perfect title, as a segue for you. You know what I mean? I understand this is your 3rd book. So like, at what point did you come to the realization that you want to write this book, given everything that happened, last season, getting to the NFC Championship and things of that nature? Like, what was that defining moment in the season that compelled you for this particular story?
So this was a different one than my previous book. So the last book, which I did, was Still Barking, which was kind of the story of the Junkies, right? We're 4 guys that grew up together, known each other minimum since high school. And it was kind of the story of friendship and brotherhood and chasing a dream, kind of like what you guys are doing, right? I'm sure you guys were boys before. You share something in common, being Commanders fans, and you're like, hey, let's start this YouTube. Let's start this podcast and kind of pursue a dream. So that was my idea. I remember vividly, I went for a run one day and I had this idea. I wrote like a paragraph. I sent it to one of my boys and he was like, damn, you're coming in hot. I was like, should I write a book about it? I was like, okay. And then we had COVID. I had time. I knew I had like a year and a half before I wanted the book to come out, which was on our 25th anniversary. So that worked out. This time it was different. The guy that helped me turn my draft into a book is a guy named Dennis Tuttle. He worked for the Cincinnati Enquirer and Washington Times for years. And Rick Snyder from the Times actually put me in touch with him. And he was like, he can help you take your draft and turn it into a book. This time, Dennis Tuttle approached me with the idea. And it was before the Lions game. And he said, would you be interested in doing a book? I've kind of got this concept. And I didn't say yes at first, but what changed my mind or made me say go was we had Herm Edwards on the Junkies, the longtime ESPN analyst who coached the Jets and coached who else did he coach? He coached 2 teams in the league. For some reason,
Kansas City. Kansas City.
Yeah, he coached the Chiefs. So Herm Edwards came on the show, and kind of in the back of my mind, he had coached Jayden at Arizona State, and I knew during Jayden's true freshman season, he faced Justin Herbert, and Oregon was number 6 in the country, powerhouse. And I kind of asked him a question with the book in the back of my mind. And Herm is so engaging and so charismatic. He told the story of, in that game, Arizona State, big time underdog, had a lead, but Herbert throws a couple touchdown passes in the 4th quarter, and they're coming back. And Herm goes to Jayden and says, you know what you got to do? And Jayden, being Jayden Daniels, calmly kind of nods his head. He never gets flustered. And then Herm goes, throw the ball to Ayuk. And then sure enough, he hits a long bomb to Ayuk. Game's on ice. Fans storm the field. They pull off the upset. That was kind of Jayden's Star is Born coming out party. So when we had Herm on the show that night, I kind of wrote that story. And I was like, all right, let's go. And then, of course, they beat the Lions. You kind of like live in this area. And it is starting to feel like the old days. You know, is it the old days yet? No, because they haven't won Super Bowls, right? But you saw the fans coming back to the team. So the book, Faith Restored, is about the team getting good again. And that really was facilitated by Snyder sells the team. I mean, we had a Burgundy and Soul party. Cakes is chanting, F. Dan Snyder. You got thousands of people just fired up, right? But they enabled a culture, Josh Harris, hiring Adam Peters and hiring Dan Quinn, that fostered kind of this brotherhood and this culture, and obviously drafting a game changer like Jayden Daniels. That did it on the field, but they've changed it off the field, and the fans have kind of come back to the team. You look at, the Atlanta Falcons game. I talked to Tress Way, and he said for years, he's the longest tenured member of the Redskins, the football team, the Commanders. He said for years, if the team was trailing at halftime, they'd get booed as they were going to the locker room. And he said for the Falcons game, they actually heard the fans cheering for them, and they kind of felt like they willed them back, and they win the game, and they clinched the playoffs. So that's kind of what the book's all about. But I started long-winded answer. I can flame that I started kind of with the Herm Edwards story, and then I built out the book from there.
Nice. And pretty much, kind of like thinking like behind the scenes too, you pretty much interviewed a wide cross section of players, coaches, front office, media, fans, and whatnot. Were there any interviews which interviews reveal like the most surprising or insights, while you were doing it?
So it kind of depends, because I like to say the book's in 3 acts. There's the glory years, like this is what it was like. You guys are younger than me, but this is what it was like when they were winning Super Bowls and what the fan base was like. There was a sellout streak, which was real. There was a waiting list for season tickets. That was a real thing. There was a stadium in RFK that would rumble and the stands shake and all that. There's an entire generation of people that don't know that. My daughter is 24, huge Burgundy Gold fan. She never experienced any of that. Her highlight was 2012, RG3's year, and we know how that ended. So there's an entire generation that doesn't know what it was like. So there's the glory years. Then there's the destruction, which is the Dan Snyder years, okay? You take that sellout streak, and you take that stadium that was packed all the time, and this fan base is passionate. And then towards the end of the Snyder era, the stadium's getting overrun by opposing fans. I went to a Vikings game. I think it was 3 seasons ago. All right, the Vikings.
Yeah,
not the
Cowboys, everywhere.
Not the Eagles, not the Giants. And half the stadium was Vikings fans.
Yeah, I was there.
So it kind of, the book starts there. It's not a history book, so it's kind of a quick setup of like, this is what it was like during the glory years, then the destruction, and then it's mostly the resurrection, like Josh Harris, new sheriff in town. They build a new culture, draft a game changer in Jayden Daniels, and then you get to kind of relive the season. So in terms of insight, it kind of depends, because I talked to people like Steve Buckhantz, told me great stories because he used to cover the team during the glory years and used to do shows with a lot of the players. And he had great stories. I wanted to touch base with people that were fans back then, like Steve Sands, who's a Golf Channel guy. But Steve Sands and his family grew up in Montgomery County. They had tickets dating back to Griffith Stadium. So it was tradition for years and years. And fast forward, he wanted to kind of pass that tradition down to his kid. I've got a scene in the book that he tells me he takes his son, who's around 20 years old, to the Buccaneers playoff game. They win that game, and by most accounts, about 40% of the fans there were Burgundy and Gold fans. In fact, Tressway's wife went to the stands to get some food, and she said people were singing "Hail to the Redskins." Like, it was almost like a home game on the road, so you're getting that feel. And when they win that game, his son turns to Steve and goes, "Dad, this must have been what it was like for you when you were a kid." So I try and kind of capture some of the fans as well as the players and stuff that you were talking about Tress was a guy who I couldn't believe it. Like, I just thought I was going to maybe talk to him for 5 minutes, and we set up this interview. We're talking for like an hour and a half on a Friday night. And I was like, dude, you can go. It's like 10:30 at night on a Friday. But, Tress told me that story about the Falcons game. Also, what it was like the first time that the players, the vets, met with Josh Harris. So Harris buys the team. It's like a whirlwind. And within 48 hours, he has a lunch with some of the longest tenured members like Tress, but some of the vets, whether it was Terry and some of the team leaders of the team, whether it's Jeremy Reeves. And he just talked about how it was such a different vibe from the previous regime, that him and I think Mitch Rales was in on this meeting. They were really intentional about getting to know the players and connecting with the players, and then listening to them, listening to like what they thought about the facilities and what they thought about travel and all those things. You look at those NFLPA grades. The Redskins under Dan Snyder finished dead last 2 years in a row. And Josh Harris famously said, I'm not an F- guy. And they kind of addressed those players' issues. So there were a lot of people that I talked to, but those were a couple of examples.
Yeah, so being a guy that's been from the area, and you talked about the golden days. So like me and Z, we were probably like 5 and 3 years old around the time the last time we won the Super Bowl. So speak about that nostalgia, like from the broadcaster perspective. Like, you're on the radio every day, you're talking to fans, you're talking to experts, you're talking to people within the organization. Like, how does that feel for you covering it in this landscape, given it's only 1 year, but how does it feel thus far?
It's a lot more fun. We started doing the radio show on the weekends in 1996. And if you told me that the Redskins / football team Commanders were going to be as sorry as they've been for 30 years, I wouldn't have bought it. Like, just the odds are you're going to have some winning seasons. And there've been so few highlights that when you finally get it, it's fun. We got to experience the Stanley Cup run for the Capitals and the Nationals winning the World Series. And though the Commanders came up a game short of the Super Bowl, we hadn't had that kind of fun and that ride where you have an electrifying quarterback and you believe that this franchise has a potential to now contend for years and years, as long as JD5 can stay upright. So it's a lot of fun. For years, people said, you guys just love ragging on the Redskins. You love thriving on negativity. And I'm like, they sucked. What are you supposed to say? You can't just be a cheerleader. You know what I mean? Let's just look at it. And it really is an amazing turnaround. I mean, 4-13 to 12-5. That's stunning. And then to win a couple of games and make it all the way NFC Championship, nobody could have predicted that.
Yeah, that's crazy too. That's real. And for us too, like we said, being fans, even through our tenure, like the ups and the downs, going through the many shuffles of quarterbacks and getting the RG 3 years and the excitement that came with that rookie season, and then to kind of get it stripped away from us due to his injury and everything else was going on after that.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Because some people, there's still some skeptics, and they're like, well, we saw this with RG3. What do you guys think is different about Jayden versus RG3, where it didn't work out after that rookie season for RG3?
So I think the difference between Jayden and RG3 is Jayden can actually make every throw at every level of the defense. I think he's a pocket passer first before he is anything else. I think he just has the ability to be able to run. And I think he's super smart. I'm not saying Robert wasn't smart, but I think it's just a different level. And also he was in college for a long time. So I feel like he's played that much more football to kind of make him ready for this, situation that he has here in Washington, as well as he had one of the good coaches that I think as a football mind, and Herm Edwards in his first stop in college. So I think all of that contributes to what we're seeing on the field, just at the maturity level. He isn't the typical 22-year-old. He was 24, 25 when he got to us. So I think that's the difference. And he's very humble. It's like he doesn't believe his own hype, where he's a superstar player in the making. But I just feel like he just feels like he has to work every day.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention that too. Very humble, that dog mentality, and you know what I mean, he puts in the work. It's just a difference, you know what I mean, between them two. RG3, he depended a lot on his athletic ability. Where it's like Jayden, he goes through the processes and he listens to the coaches and he uses athletic ability as a bonus. It's not his first thing. So I think between the helmet, the mental is a little different. He processes things much better. And it's totally, I mean, while it is some similarities, I think it's big differences as well.
No question. And, if you go back to the stories of RG3 after his rookie season, he was all in for week one.
Yeah.
He was all about himself, but he had a lot of people. I remember talking to Santana Moss, who, look, he liked playing with RG3, but he said there were a lot of voices in RG3's head, whether it was dad who was saying he could be like Aaron Rodgers, and they were on a mission to turn him into a pocket passer, and that wasn't his strength.
Yeah.
Who knows the true story, but you hear these stories about Mike Shanahan and Kyle being frustrated with RG3 because RG3 apparently said, hey, I'm not running this system. They wanted him to run the system that he did during his rookie season. He was like, that's out. Well, that was to his detriment because he didn't play towards his strengths.
Correct.
And, a lot of things you talk about. The thing which I find most encouraging about Jayden Daniels, you remember that picture that came out of him on the private plane right after he had his first presser in Washington? And I remember the junkies kicking around like, it's almost staged, like too good to be true. Like it's like not real, like almost like a try hard. I was like, that's actually Jayden Daniels, Do you remember that picture of Peyton Manning when he's in like a hot tub and he's got his helmet and he's got an iPad and he's looking at his plays? And that's Jayden Daniels. Like, he's a nerd for the game. Like, you hear about him, you always hear these cliches, the first one in, first one out, and you never know. But the whole thing with the VR headset, it's because he wants to be the best. Like, he wants to maximize his potential. He's not just punching the clock, relying on his athleticism. He's taking the coaching. I mean, you've heard even just in the last couple of weeks, Cliff Kingsbury saying sometimes he calls in a play and Jayden knows it better than him.
Yeah. And that's to your point. My daughters, I have twin girls, they go to LSU, and all of the stories that we get out of LSU is like, he's been the same guy. He's not much of a partier. He's reserved. He's to himself. All he really cares about is ball. And that speaks, volumes. And we've been looking for this type of player for years here. I mean, and so in my time, I haven't seen nothing that has come close. And hopefully, everything remains the same over these next couple of years, and we're competing for, Super Bowls and things of that nature.
And to bring it back full circle, fits in perfectly with Terry McLaurin, right? So I think Terry signing today is great because I'm not saying it was a great percentage of the fans, but there definitely were some fans who were starting to get a little frustrated with Terry, like, hey, you're under contract. Get your butt in here. You need to play. And I think now all's right in the world. All will be forgiven. Now you just want to see these guys connect like they did so often last season.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, definitely. And so tell everybody, about your book, where it's currently available, and any plans of. I know it's available for pre-order now, but give them more details of where they can find it and where they can go.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Just go to faithrestoredbook.com and you can order a copy. In the coming weeks, I'll probably have some book signings through the station. Love to meet people. I said that first 1,000 books sold, I'm going to have 10 golden tickets in those 1,000 books. And I'm going to have a party at the house. You guys are invited. It's probably going to be for the Chargers game. It's got to be one of the road games. Have a good time, kind of celebrate it. And look, the book's perfect right now. You kind of can relive the last season, the success of last season, and see how they kind of did it. Because if you go to like Adam Peters' first press conference, the language that he uses and the language that Dan Quinn uses, and really Josh Harris, it's all in alignment. And you even hear like the players, they seem to repeat the mantras of Dan Quinn, like everything is in alignment. I remember I talked to Tyler Biadasz at minicamp, and I was kind of challenging him because all these guys say the same thing about brotherhood and culture. And you're like, Okay, if you had that and you had the culture and you got the brotherhood, but you have Sam Howell under center, I'm sorry, you're not winning 12 games. And he got actually kind of a little bitter at me. I got a little scared. That dude's a big boy. But the truth is, there is something to having the right culture and kind of and building something that hopefully is sustainable. Josh Harris, look, he's not infallible. He's got the Sixers. They got problems. He's got the New Jersey Devils. They're okay. But what he does, at least he believes in, is he hires the right people and then he stays out of the way. Whereas the previous guy, you know this, the organization may believe Dwayne Haskins isn't the right guy, but the owner would come in and say, hey, I want you to draft Dwayne Haskins. And we know how that worked out. And that happened over and over and over again, whether it was Donovan McNabb. I mean, I'm just using the quarterback position, but the owner got in the way of himself. This owner knows his lane. He's a business guy, and he knows I need to hire the right people. And I thought, look, he got off to a good start. I write about this in the book. It was kind of outside the box. He hired Bob Myers, who won championships with the Golden State Warriors, and they go through this search. They find Adam Peters. Then they empower Adam Peters, and maybe they wanted Ben Johnson, but they landed on this guy, Dan Quinn, who turned out to be great in year one, and the players love him.
Yeah, and that was my bad, Z, but that was one of the things, like the fan base I've seen in our comments over the last few weeks. They were saying, well, when is Harris going to step in and put his foot down and make this thing go away so we can re-sign Terry? But I'm glad that he didn't, and he hired guys, and that's what he's known for, hiring guys to do the work while he sits in the background and just be and is just the owner. You know what I mean?
But let me make this clear. I tell this story. I don't know if you've seen it in the tunnel when they beat Tampa. There's a scene in the tunnel after the game where Magic Johnson is kind of holding court like he does with the reporters. And, some of the guys are walking by, and he starts saying, this wouldn't have been possible without Josh Harris, Dan Quinn, Adam Peters. And then he pauses and he goes, and the right quarterback. So there's a chapter in the book called The Right Quarterback, because that is the number one driver. And that is the number one reason I think faith is restored. All that other stuff you do need, but you need that franchise quarterback. And, this year is the first time they're going to have a quarterback that started a year ago in week one that's going to start again in week one. Every year it's been somebody different.
Yes.
Jayden Daniels for the last 7-8 years.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my last questions for you. Like, who do you credit as the true catalyst? Is it the owner? Is it the GM? Is it the coach? Is it Jayden? Collective, but I mean, while we all look at it as a collective as well, we know that. But like you said, that driving force is Jayden.
I think Jayden is the biggest reason. Look, we talked about this on the Junkies. Imagine that draft and Dan Snyder was still there. They probably would have bungled it. He probably would have forced them to trade up for Caleb Williams. Probably would have given up 3 draft picks. And then, Caleb might work out. We'll see how it goes here with Ben Johnson. But I think the new owner is a big part of it for sure. And then Jayden Daniels is the biggest driver. And Dan Quinn, look, you got to credit Dan Quinn. I'll be honest, when they hired Dan Quinn, I was underwhelmed. It's like, this guy's one game over 500.
A retread.
His calling card is the Super Bowl, which they blew. Maybe not his fault. Kyle Shanahan, the offense court, whatever, right? That's his resume. It's not some killer resume.
Yeah.
But to his credit, and I write about this in the book, he is a guy who kind of studied what went wrong. And he consulted all kinds of people all around the league. And he knew if he got another shot, he wanted to do things differently. And, I talked to Austin Eckler for the book. Eckler said the first couple weeks, it was all about getting to know people. It wasn't X's and O's. It was about getting to know the coaches, and the coaches would try and connect with the players. And so that fostered that brotherhood that you always hear about. And for Quinn, that's important. And for the players, they bought into it. You could say he somehow, some of these slogans are kind of cheesy, but they all buy into it, right? So like, to tell the truth Monday, and anybody, any place, anytime. Like they buy into that stuff. And when everybody's on board as one, you have the opportunity to do special things.
Yeah, we just want to thank you for coming on. You guys, need to go get Faith Restored by JP Flaim of 106.7 The Fans, the Sports Junkies. You can watch him live every day, simulcasting on the Monumental Network and also on the Odyssey app as well.
Yes,
but thank you.
Appreciate it, boys, man. Keep thriving, keep doing what you're doing, keep having fun. You know, the Junkies, we started out a long time ago, Bowie Cable Television in 1995, and it was just about having fun. And next year is going to be year number 30 for us. So blessed. Hope people check out the book. If you're a Commanders fan, I think you'll really enjoy the book. And hopefully this season will be a continuation of what we saw last year. You know, last thing I'll leave you with, you know, Faith Restored. Some people have said, well, it's only one season. How can you write a book called Faith Restored? I remember after that Lions game, I went to Dick's with my kid, and they had like a Commander's tent. They had a DJ there. They had all this gear. Like the fan base has been starving for this. You know, if you go back just a couple seasons, they had a home opener with like 15,000 empty seats. Mm-hmm. It's completely changed. Like there's excitement now for this team. Are they back to where they were? No, you can't say that until they actually win Super Bowls. But they have a chance, and I do think the fan base has been reignited and reinvigorated. I'm sure you guys feel that when you were doing the show 3 years ago. It's just people being cynical and no expectations. They're the same old skins. It's stuff not working out. They bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick. He doesn't even make it past a quarter. You know, Carson Wentz. It doesn't work out. It's like year after year, broken record. But then once Snyder left, it was like, woo, there's a chance. And then, of course, you draft Jayden Daniels. And look, let's be real. You can say in retrospect, Jayden Daniels at number 2 is a no-brainer. But think about it. Adam Peters in his first year as GM, that is a career-defining decision. If he doesn't pick the right guy, I'm sorry, whatever else he does, it's probably going to be defined by that move. So he made the right call. They drafted the game changer. I keep using that word because we had Quinn on the show. And before the draft, and I have a chapter in the book called Game Changer, Quinn came on the Junkies, and we played word association with him. We brought up the rookie, you know, the then college prospects that were rookies last year. And when he answered Jayden Daniels is game changer, there was something about the way he said it. Me and EB were like, oh, they're drafting Jayden Daniels. They're not drafting Drake May. They're not drafting Bo Nix. They're not drafting Michael Penix. They're drafting Jayden. And it turns out it was a tell. And, of course, he was the game changer, is the game changer. And, hey, I'm going to plug it again. Faith is restored.
yes. And tell EB we say hello, and we thank him for staying down 10 toes through everything. He never wavered. He was always there. Tell him we say thank you from the bottom.
Wait a second. He never wavered. Never wavered on what?
He didn't waver. He was always with this team. Always with this team.
No, he's always with the team. But sometimes he probably should waver because he'll stick with the Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
He stuck with RG3 for like 3 seasons. Yeah. He was like the last guy to finally say, you know, get fed up. Look it up. You can see it on YouTube or something. EB blow up RG3. It took him a good couple seasons. We were telling him, dude, the guy can't play.
Reminds me of me. I didn't flip the script on RG3 until he was about to spill the beans on Dan Snyder. Like I stood beside him all the way up to that point. When that happened, I said, all that Snyder did for you and gave you all this special treatment, there's no way you should do that. He ended up canning the book and didn't put it out, but it's just like ever since then, my mind is just flipped on him.
Do you think he wrote one word of that book? Like
the
way that he said it was like, I got a book coming out. Okay.
Yeah, facts.
Look, I'm willing to talk about my book now. I'm done with it, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to promote it before I write it.
Yeah, facts. That's real.
Yeah.
But well, like you said, thanks again. We appreciate you, man. It's definitely an honor. And, you know, huge fans, and let's stay locked in and stay connected.
Will do, man. Keep thriving, boys.
No question. Thank you.
JP Flaim, 106.7 The Fans, the Sports Junkies. You can find him on the Odyssey app as well as Monumental Network every day when they're on talking sports, be it the Wizards, the Capitals, the Nationals, or the Washington Commanders.
Yeah. But yeah, you don't got nothing else, bro. That's it.
That's it. We'll see y'all this Wednesday with John from the Ball and the Burgundy podcast, as well as Juan Gotti from Juan Gotti Talking Sports for the Burgundy Breakdown. If you haven't already done so, please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you can get other informative videos just like this. We're just cooking. We got some more in-depth interviews coming soon over the next week or two. So stay locked in with us on that. And you know, Terry signed, so it's lit. It's lit.
It's lit. All right, go run out.
More, we are gone.
Reedie Zee shout.